Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we try to cut through the noise and get you truly well-informed. You know that feeling, right? That sense of being overworked, overwhelmed, maybe a little overscheduled sometimes. In today's, hyper-connected world, it's pretty common, I think. And the pressure often feels relentless. So today, we're taking a deep look at something that touches nearly all of us, workplace well-being and health. Specifically, how we can maybe better navigate and manage that pervasive reality of stress. Our source material for this is really fascinating. It's a very recent research paper from the Health Economics and Management Review, published just this past July. It offers a powerful quantitative look, analyzing stress perceptions among, like, thousands of working adults right here in the U.S., and it spans 2 decades of data. So our mission for you today, unearth some genuinely, maybe surprising insights from this big study, and then hopefully arm you with some practical strategies. Make occupational stress less of a burden, help you feel more resilient and, crucially, better informed about how to thrive, even in a demanding work environment. Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of the study itself, what exactly is workplace stress, and why does it feel like such a persistent challenge these days?
Yeah, that's a really good place to start. At its core, stress is basically the damaging physical and emotional reactions we have. They pop up when the demands of a job clash with or maybe exceed individuals' abilities or their resources or even just their personal needs. It's that feeling, being squeezed, frustrated, maybe sometimes just feeling helpless. And it's really important to make a distinction. There's eustress, that's the good kind, the motivator, like the buzz before a presentation. And then there's distress. That's the chronic, unmanaged kind that can become, well, truly overwhelming, debilitating even. This study, it highlights multiple sources contributing to that distress, and a lot of them will probably sound familiar. Things like, global societal uncertainties, really intense job demands, constant time pressures, the digital overload we all feel, and of course our personal responsibilities outside work that kind of spill over. What's particularly striking in the U.S., as the study points out, is how these things get compounded by, well, very strong cultural expectations. Constant productivity. And frankly, often not enough emphasis on mental well-being at work. And the effects of this unmanaged stress, they're serious. We're talking about profound impacts. Physical fatigue, mental burnout, also a significant drop in productivity, reduced job satisfaction, and even a higher risk for serious health conditions, things like hypertension, anxiety, depression, cardiovascular diseases. It's definitely not just having a bad day. It's a serious challenge to overall well-being, long-term health too.
Wow, okay. So to really get a handle on this big challenge, the researchers took a very systematic approach, you said. They collected quantitative data, analyzing stress perceptions from, 3,950 working adults across the U.S. And over a really long time, 2 decades, 2005 right up to 2025. That's a lot of data. And they used a specific tool for this, the Overload Stress Inventory, OSI.
That's right, the OSI. And the core idea behind it is actually pretty straightforward, but it's quite effective for capturing that subjective experience of stress, how people feel. It uses just 10 simple statements. They gauge an individual's perceived stress and those feelings of overload. And these statements, they really do resonate with daily life. They help capture that internal pressure. For instance, some of them are things like, I regularly take work home to finish in the evenings or weekends, or maybe I have more work than it is possible to complete at a given time.
I think a lot of people can relate to those.
Absolutely. Another one is, I do not always have enough time to do as good of a job as I am capable of doing. Or, there are many times that I feel overwhelmed by my tasks and assignments. And this whole approach, it's grounded in a really well-established theory, the transactional model of stress and coping, Lazarus and Folkman. Basically, this model says stress isn't just an automatic reaction to something demanding. It's really influenced by how we appraise the stressor, how we see it as a threat or a challenge, and crucially, our perceived ability to cope with it, our confidence, maybe. So this naturally raises a big question, which the study looked into. How do things like our education, our background, and our work experience actually influence that appraisal, how we see things?
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting for me. The study found a statistically significant link between education level and perceived stress. This isn't just about having a diploma, is it? What did they really find there?
Right, it's more nuanced than just the degree itself. The findings clearly show that adults with higher education levels generally reported lower perceived stress. To give you the numbers, those with a college education had an average stress score of about 24.99. Compare that to those with only a high school degree, their average was 26.84. And when we say statistically significant, we mean it's a real difference, not just random noise in the data. It showed up consistently across thousands of people. On that OSI scale, that difference of nearly 2 points, it represents a pretty tangible, consistent reduction in feeling overwhelmed day to day.
Okay, so a real difference, but why? What's the thinking behind that link?
Well, the why seems to be multifaceted. Higher education, it seems, doesn't just give you knowledge in a specific field. It might equip people with broader problem-solving skills, maybe better time management abilities. They might also get more exposure to different stress management strategies along the way, or develop enhanced cognitive abilities, ways of thinking that help process stressors more effectively. And then there's the practical side. People with advanced degrees often land jobs with more autonomy, more control over their work. Plus, maybe better job security, higher incomes. All of those things can act as pretty powerful buffers against stress. And this isn't just a U.S. finding, it's actually backed up by similar studies. They found related results with adults in Germany and educators over in Malaysia.
That makes a lot of sense. More autonomy, higher income.
So,
Yeah, those definitely sound like good stress buffers.
yeah.
But I wonder, is there maybe a different kind of stress? Like maybe the stress of high responsibility that comes with those jobs? Does the study account for that? Or is it mainly focused on overload?
That's a really excellent point, and it highlights the nuance we need here. While the study shows lower overall perceived stress for the higher education group, particularly using the OSI, which focuses on overload, it doesn't mean those jobs are stress-free. Not at all. They might just have different types of stressors. So maybe a CEO feels less overload from, say, paperwork, but experiences way more stress from high-stakes decisions or that ultimate accountability. Since the OSI zeroes in on overload, it's definitely possible other stress forms in demanding jobs aren't fully captured. Future research could absolutely dig deeper into the nature of stress at different career levels. That would be interesting.
Okay, so education builds resilience, particularly against that feeling of overload. But what about just learning on the job? The school of hard knocks, you could say. Yeah. Does practical experience play a similar role, facing challenges day in, day out? What did the study find about work experience?
Yes, absolutely. Work experience came out as another statistically significant factor, a big one, actually. The study found that people with no work experience reported significantly higher levels of perceived stress. Their average score was way up at 29.08. Compare that to those with at least 1 year or more of experience. Their average score was much lower, 24.79.
Wow, that's a big jump down.
It is. A really substantial difference. And again, consistent in the data, it really drives home the value of experiential learning, just doing the job. Over time, facing challenges, workers naturally build resilience. They gain that crucial how things work here knowledge, procedural knowledge, and they develop important social networks, support systems. Experienced folks tend to understand the job demands better. They can prioritize more effectively. They've likely developed a whole toolkit of coping mechanisms just from being exposed to workplace stressors over the years. Plus, they often benefit from greater confidence, a more secure professional identity. That itself is a strong protective factor. And again, this lines up with other research. Studies involving teachers in Ethiopia, even paramedics in high-stress jobs, found similar links. More experience seemed to correlate with better coping.
Okay, so we've seen education and experience acting as these sort of personal shields against stress, really critical factors. But what does this all mean for us, for working adults trying to navigate today's demands right now? And maybe more importantly, what should organizations take away from this?
Well, it clearly means both education and experience are significant protective factors. They really seem to enhance how individuals appraise challenges, how they see them, and their ability to use effective coping strategies. But what's really crucial to remember is these factors don't work in a vacuum. They interact with other things, like how supportive is the organization, what resources are available on the job, even national policies play a role. So this raises a really important question for organizations. How can they actively integrate educational components, maybe training and experiential learning opportunities into their wellness programs, especially for people just starting out? The findings also strongly suggest that younger workers, early career professionals, well, they naturally have less of both education and experience under their belt, so they might be particularly vulnerable to stress.
Makes sense.
Right, so this makes things like targeted mentorship, really robust onboarding programs absolutely critical. Not just for getting the job done, but for their actual well-being. Because ultimately, unmanaged stress isn't just tough on the individual, it leads to serious problems for the organization, too. Things like widespread burnout, lower quality of work or service, and big problems with keeping staff. It really impacts the bottom line and, the human capital.
This deep dive isn't just about understanding the problem, though. It's really about what we can do about it. And the study offers some incredibly practical recommendations, doesn't it, for managing stress in this fast-paced world.
It does, yeah. The research points to 6 key stress management tools and techniques, things that can make a real difference day to day. First, there's mindfulness meditation, basically consciously paying attention to the present moment. We can talk more about that. Second, time management and prioritization, structuring your workday, setting realistic goals. Seems basic, but it's key. Third, physical activity and movement. Getting regular exercise, yes, but also just movement breaks during the day, getting up from the desk. Fourth is cognitive restructuring. That's about noticing and then actively reframing those negative thought patterns, challenging them. Fifth, peer support and communication, really fostering a supportive vibe with colleagues, talking things through. And finally, number 6 is digital detox and boundary setting. So managing our technology use to head off burnout.
Those are really powerful tools. And they seem like things we can take personal responsibility for, right? The study emphasizes that these can be woven into daily life, often with just small adjustments. Let's maybe double-click on a few of these. Starting with mindfulness, it's definitely a buzzword right now. What does it actually mean for stress management in a practical, everyday sense? Not just, going on a retreat somewhere.
Right, not just retreats. Mindfulness, at its core, it's really a mental skill. Not just a relaxation technique, though can be relaxing. It's about consciously training your attention. It helps you sort of reclaim control over your focus, minimize distractions, which are everywhere, and stay grounded, even with all the digital noise. And the benefits are pretty profound. Things like improved emotional regulation, handling your feelings better, enhanced resilience, better decision-making. It can even lower cortisol levels, the stress hormone, and definitely sharpen your focus. It really helps you notice the early signs of stress. And then it gives you that crucial pause, a moment to choose your response instead of just having that knee-jerk reaction.
That pause feels absolutely crucial. I know personally, when things get hectic, it's just so easy to react without thinking. So how do we actually do this? The study gives some surprisingly simple, concrete steps, right? For fitting mindfulness into a busy day. What were some examples?
Exactly. It's all about small, consistent practices. Micro habits almost. The study suggests things like mindful breathing, just for 2 to 4 minutes, maybe morning and afternoon, literally just focusing on the sensation of your breath, that's it. Or developing conscious eating habits, actually tasting your lunch instead of just inhaling it at your desk while still typing.
Guilty as charged sometimes.
We all are. Or even just keeping a simple diary, jotting down thoughts and feelings to process them. That can be a powerful daily mindfulness practice too. It's really about creating these small moments of awareness throughout the day.
Okay, what about something maybe a bit more unexpected? Humor. How can laughing actually reduce stress at work? It doesn't sound like a typical corporate tool.
Huh? Yeah, it might sound a bit odd, but humor plays a really vital, often underestimated role. It works by creating psychological safety, making people feel more comfortable. It eases tension. When people laugh together, it kind of breaks down barriers, fosters a more relaxed atmosphere. People feel safer expressing themselves. And this reduction in stress isn't just nice for the individual. It actually boosts team morale, encourages more open communication. In really high-pressure situations, sometimes a well-timed, appropriate joke can genuinely diffuse conflict, help reframe challenges, remind everyone not to take everything so seriously. It can even spark a bit of creativity sometimes just by shifting perspective.
And the study even shared some professor-friendly puns to illustrate this. I thought these were great. Like, I am reading a book on anti-gravity. It is impossible to put down. Or, our class is just like a startup, full of ideas, limited funding, and running mostly on caffeine and hope. A little bit of levity really can go a long way. And then finally, let's touch on digital detox. This feels so incredibly relevant right now. We're all so plugged in all the time. Why is taking a break from tech so vital?
Well, in this world of constant digital connection, the result is often, frankly, heightened stress, disrupted sleep, burnout. We're just always on. So digital detoxification, just intentionally taking breaks from screens, from constant notifications, allows the mind to actually reset, to rest. It can dramatically improve sleep quality, reduce that feeling of cognitive fatigue, like your brain is just fried, and it encourages more meaningful connections in the real world off screen. The study points out that simple things like just turning off work notifications after hours or designating specific tech-free times, maybe the hour before bed, or even creating email-free zones during the day can make a huge difference. It helps prevent that burnout and protect your mental space from constant intrusion.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground, but every thorough analysis, every deep dive into research needs to look at the whole picture. That includes limitations, right? So what should we keep in mind about this particular study? Any caveats?
Definitely. A key limitation is its reliance on self-reported data. Now, the OSI is a strong tool, but whenever you ask people to report on their own stress levels, there's always that potential for bias.
Right.
Subjective interpretations, maybe memory playing tricks, someone might downplay their stress or maybe exaggerate it, depending on how they feel about the survey or themselves that day. Also, a big one is that the study focused only on US-based respondents.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so that limits how much we can generalize the findings to other cultures or populations. Stressors, coping mechanisms, cultural norms around work, they can differ significantly elsewhere. Different economic systems, too.
That's a really important point, especially the self-reporting part. How much could that actually skew the results, do you think? Is there a way future research could get around that? Or are we always kind of stuck with relying on how people feel about their stress?
That's the inherent challenge with studying perception, isn't it? Researchers do use statistical methods to try and minimize bias, but completely eliminating it is tricky. Future research could definitely try to triangulate the data, maybe combine self-reports with more objective measures, things like physiological markers, cortisol levels in saliva perhaps, or even observe behavioral patterns at work, though that's complex. But fundamentally, stress is a subjective experience. So how people feel about it, how they perceive it, that's always going to be a crucial piece of the puzzle. You can't really measure stress without asking people about it. Looking ahead, the researchers do point to some exciting avenues for future work, like the need for more longitudinal studies tracking people over even longer periods to see how stress changes, exploring cultural and ethnic differences in more depth, and examining other variables too, like the specific role of organizational support or how age, gender, and different job types interact with stress. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it just underscores that we need continuous learning. Understanding stress dynamics is crucial as the world of work keeps evolving for
Right.
individuals and for organizations.
Well, our journey today has really highlighted how education and work experience act as these significant protective buffers against stress. That's a key takeaway. And we've also seen that actively adopting practical strategies, things like mindfulness, setting digital boundaries, even using a bit of humor, can genuinely impact our well-being in this demanding world. These insights, we hope, are designed to empower you, the listener, to take some personal responsibility for your health, your productivity, your overall life satisfaction. So as you go about your day, maybe think about this. What small step, just one thing based on what you've heard today, could you integrate into your daily routine? Something to enhance your well-being and resilience against workplace stress. Or maybe looking outward. How might you advocate for some of these practices within your own organization? Something to think about.